Welcome everyone to Our Unity, a show that wishes to spread a spirit of peace and love in the world, one conversation at a time.
None of that affects how you are going to change the world.
That's right.
No, it does not take one person to change the world, but it takes one person to believe in themselves.
Yes.
That they can make a difference.
I love
to
that.
Inspire others.
And that's why, for me, I try to make it my purpose now to try to help other people realize their self-worth.
Yeah.
Because it's so sad that so many of us, we get destroyed based off of what other people have to say.
Yeah.
I would say do it in your own way. Make sure you're doing it on your own accord and take a risk.
Go out there and live your life passionately. Believe in everything that you're doing and believe in the fact that you will accomplish every single goal.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Society, Culture, and You under the Our Unity symbol. We're examining society, culture, and the human experience. I'm your co-host, Reverend Dr. Casey Jones, and I'm thrilled to be with you all on this journey tonight. Your host, LaShawn Walker, is off tonight, but rest assured, she will be back next week. Every fourth Tuesday of the month, Society, Culture, and You explores the diverse nature of our world, from the traditions that bind us to the innovations that propel us forward. We uncover the stories, ideas, and voices that shape who we are as individuals and as a collective society. Through vibrant discussions and immersive experience, we'll celebrate the richness of culture and spotlight the voices and experience of individuals from all walks of life, amplifying stories that inspire, challenge, and unite us. Today, we continue our conversation about organ donation because April is Organ Donation Month. So this show, again, is addressing the myths and misconceptions of organ donation part 2. We're going to have a little video before I bring in our guests.
At Live On New York, we deliver the gift of life to New Yorkers on the transplant waiting list. For those suffering from end-stage kidney, liver, heart, lung, and intestinal disease, time is of the essence waiting for a donated match. But New Yorkers are stepping up in amazing and profound ways to save lives. At Live On New York, we have the privilege of making miracles happen every day by facilitating organ and tissue donation.
My name is Kesh, and I'm a transplant coordinator at Live On New York.
I am a registered nurse. I help save lives through organ and tissue donation.
In the greater New York City area, there are nearly 8,000 people who need a transplant to survive. I am Live On New York because I'm a certified transplant preservationist.
I am Live On New York because I am a paramedic.
I am Live On New York because I have a master's in mental health counseling.
I'm Live On New York because I'm a New Yorker.
I am Live On New York.
I am Live On New York.
I am Live On New York.
We at Live On New York are life-saving heroes. Join us to say, I am Live On New York.
My first guest tonight is Stacey Connell. She's a human services professional with more than 20 years of success innovating new programs and leading education and outreach services to improve and support the lives of foster youth, people with disabilities, and grieving families in our community. Stacey has been employed with Live On New York, an organ procurement organization, for 6 years. She served 3 years as a family support advocate with Live On New York, where she supported grieving families during their most vulnerable moments losing a loved one, offering the opportunity of donation and supporting donor families throughout the donation process. Currently, Stacey serves as a senior management volunteer services with Live On New York. Stacey has her Bachelor's of Arts degree in psychology, a Master's of Arts degree in public administration, and a second Master's of Arts degree in counseling. Stacy also completed the Mentoring Supervisor Certificate Program at Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Calvary Hospital Bereavement Course. Her passion is empowering others to reach their full potential by providing them with tools they need to succeed and paving it forward to help others. Thank you, Stacy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me this evening.
Oh, it's so nice to have you again after last month. We're going to take a few minutes and introduce Katrina Erskine as well. And Katrina is a certified life coach specializing in grief healing through her company, Grief to Heal. For over 3 years, she has helped people navigate through their own personal grief and supports them to find their healing path. Katrina is currently a volunteer coordinator with Live On New York, bringing awareness of the importance of becoming an organ donor and giving the gift of life. Let us introduce to everyone Katrina Erskine from Live On New York.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for
Hi,
having
ladies.
me.
How are you all?
Great.
How are you all doing? Good. It's good to see you all again. This month is April donation. April is Organ Donation Month.
Donate Life
Is
Month?
that correct?
Yes, Donate Life Month.
Donate Life Month. Can you explain what that is? And we have a little bit of jag in there, but we'll make it do.
Sure. It's National Donate Life Month in April, which is really a national way of just sharing about bringing awareness about organ and tissue donation. And at Live on New York, we do it every day, but nationally, it's known as Donate Life Month for the month of April.
Awesome. So let's jump into a few questions. Last month, Stacy, when you and I met, and LaShawn, it was just a wonderful conversation. I really pray that people started to think about organ donation from your first time with us. So I want to know, and I'm going to throw out the question to Stacy first, and then Katrina can come in. What motivated you all to participate in the organ donation movement?
It started many years for me. I had a very close friend who was a double liver recipient. His sister donated half of her liver to him, but then due to rejection and some complications, he needed a second transplant. And then he received a liver from a deceased donor. And it must be over 15 years now, and he's alive and doing well and able to live to see his grandchildren. And then I had my godfather who was a kidney recipient, and my uncle who was in need of a kidney but passed away before being placed on the waiting list. So because of all of that, it really, yeah. And it just sparked my interest in wanting to learn more and do more, and helping to educate people and helping people's lives to be changed and saved.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful when we can, have a hardship over something or view people in trouble who are having issues with the medical field, and then all of a sudden when we grow up, we can actually give back in that same way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Katrina, how did you get into the movement?
This movement, I hate to say, wasn't by choice, but my journey started about 24 years ago. I was 18 years old. I was pregnant with my first son, Jalil. And of course, being 18, pregnant, I knew it all. I knew his first play date. I knew where he was going to college. I knew where, pretty much his first outfit coming out the hospital. But not knowing that I only had 5 weeks with him. So he was born on August 4th of 2000. And on September 11th of 2000, that morning, got up, took him to the doctor, and the doctor told me I was doing a great job as a young mom, keep up the good work, and went home that night and Jalil stopped breathing. We don't know why. We don't know what happened. He was rushed to the hospital. And what seemed like the longest moment of my life, the doctor finally came in and said that, Mom, normally we give 5 shots to the heart. I'm sorry, we give 3 shots to the heart, but we gave Jalil 5 shots to the heart, and we was able to get his heart to start beating. But he was not breathing on his own, and he had to be put on a ventilator. And that was the hardest week for me and my family. We got to the end of the week. Doctor came in and said, Mom, we're going to do one more test to see if there's any brain activity and see if he's able to breathe on his own. And at that moment, there was an advocate from Live on New York that came in and introduced the idea of donating Jalil's organs. And when I tell you that he came in so peaceful, in such a crazy, scary moment in my life, but I'm 18. I don't know anything about organ donation. I, checked it off, but never really went home and talked to my family about it. Never told anybody about my decision. It was just something that felt right to do at the moment. So I said yes. At the time, my dad was with me, and him being Big Papa Bear automatically said no. But that was just him trying to protect our space. Not really listening to the question, but just protecting me. And normally, I am a daddy's girl. I normally listen to everything he says to do, but this time it was led for me to say yes. So they finally did the test, and of course there was no activity, and he wasn't breathing on his own. So we're getting ready to say our goodbyes. My aunt is putting on bright red lipstick and kissing the bottom of Jalil's feet, and we're cutting up his hair to save it. And all of a sudden, a team of doctors come rushing into the room, and they're gently pushed us to the side. They're all over Jalil, and they're like, oh my God, they're excited, they're happy, they're looking over his heart. And one of the doctors kind of looked up and read the room and said, Mom, I'm so sorry, but there is a 2-month-old baby boy in Kings County Hospital, and if he doesn't get a heart, he's not going to make it. So right there, I knew why I was led to say yes at that moment. Time went on. I want to say maybe about a month or 2 later, I got a letter from Live on New York, and they let me know that Jalil saved 2 babies' lives. He saved a 2-month-old with his heart, and he saved an 11-month-old with his liver. So as you can imagine, I'm 18, time is going, life is lifing, and I had 2 more kids, and I kind of stopped saying Jalil's name. I only had 5 weeks with him. We really only have one picture of him because, back then it wasn't any camera phones. It was the camera that you have to spin on the back and take pictures. And you always think you have time. I'll take pictures later on next week. You think you have time. So I stopped saying his name. It's not something you kind of bring up, around Christmas dinner or a party so you just kind of stop talking about him. I never stopped thinking about him, but you kind of stopped saying his name. So on his 21st birthday, I just remember I had such an overwhelming urge. I needed to do something for him. I needed to say his name. I needed to honor him in some way, and I just didn't know what to do. So I decided to go back to where it started for me, and that was to Live on New York. So I called Live on New York and spoke to one of their team members, and she said, Mom, let me call you right back. So I remember I was, I want to say it was the next day, if not the same day, but maybe the next day. I remember I was pulling into my driveway and my phone rung, and it was one of the team members. She called me back and she said, Mom, we found the liver recipient. I stopped. I didn't even get all the way to the back of the driveway. And she said the liver recipient was now 22 years old and having her own baby. So here it is, my baby gave life, and now here she was giving life. So it was like he saved a whole generation.
Absolutely. Two.
Right.
Yeah. Oh
so,
my goodness.
that right there, I felt like I needed to do something. And I was introduced, I spoke to Stacy and I was introduced to the volunteer program. And she let me know that I had an impactful story. Of course, I only had 5 weeks. What can I tell people? What can I say? I didn't have anything to really say. But, after talking to her and letting her know my story, she told me that I had an impactful story. So gave me the opportunity to stand on all these different platforms to tell his story. And that was 4 years ago. And since then, I've been taking off with it, whoever I can touch to tell the story, to start to get them to start thinking about organ donation. I'm on it.
And now you work with Live on New York.
Now I teamed up. Yep, they brought me on, and now I teamed up with them as donor mom, and now I'm a volunteer coordinator, and reaching out to other families like they did me to share their impactful story to help bring awareness to organ donation. Yeah, grateful.
So Jaleel's light is still shining bright in this world.
Man, I walk through the doors every day. I feel like I'm going to work with my son every single day.
Oh my gosh,
that's
amazing. Wow, that's amazing. You mentioned in your story, and again, thank you for sharing. I don't know if it gets easier, but God is with you as you share each time.
I feel
so as far as the worker, you said a worker came into the room and he was very peaceful. How important was that for you? I'm assuming kind of important that the person come in with just the air about them, a peace about them. What do you think about that?
So if you can just imagine, this is a scary moment. We don't really know exactly what's happening. We kind of know what the outcome is about to happen. And for somebody to come in and ask you to make a decision to to not only donate his organs, but to come to reality that you have to say goodbye. The doctors come in and talk about it and say, tests are being ran, and after that, we'll see where it goes and see what needs to be done. But it was just kind of like a moment where you just step out of the chaos into wait. So I have to say goodbye, think about donating his organs and saving a life. For somebody to deliver that the right way in that moment, it's very, very important. And when they come in with such peace, I'm trusting every word you're saying to me right now because of how you're delivering it to me. I'm in it with you. I'm listening to you. You blocked off all the noise just the way that you're coming into me. And I'm tuning into exactly what you're saying, which honestly, that whole week, it's really a fog. I remember certain things and some things pop up and some things don't. But that moment wasn't a fog for me. I remember that moment. I might not remember his name or what color hair he had, but I remember how I felt being in that moment because I swear it was just being like in a white room. It was just me and him in that room. I mean, there was a bunch of people, but it was just me and him in that room having a conversation. And that, if I can ever find him now and thank him, because not only did he bring me peace, he, not knowing, started my healing journey 21 years down the line, just allowing me, giving me that opportunity to say yes. And now my son has a legacy because of that one question he asked me. So very important.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So Stacy, you've been here at Live On for a long time, right?
Yeah, 6 years.
6 years. And it's really not a long time, but with the work that you do, I know it can feel long sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
So you're a counselor also. Was one of your jobs to talk to families as well, or did you do that in your other grief work?
It was. So when I started with Live on New York, I started off as a family support advocate. So I was that worker that actually walked into the room that Katrina is sharing and would speak with families, support families while they're in that moment of just learning about the loss of their loved one and providing them with support. And then also, having that conversation and letting them know either whether or not that their loved one was already a registered donor. So I'm either notifying them that their loved one made the decision prior to, or letting them know that they, as a family member, has the option to make that decision for their loved one to save lives and have that legacy of being a donor hero. So definitely, it is a very touchy moment because there's so much loss, there's grief, there's different levels of understanding, right? Some people may understand the grave prognosis that they're given. Some people may not understand at all. Other people may be very hopeful that something is going to change. So it's really a delicate situation where you have to really read the room and help explain everything to everyone and making sure that everyone fully understands, and then having that conversation and answering whatever questions they have in that moment about donation, because sometimes some people are hearing it for the very first time, and don't know anything about it. So it's really, providing the information and educating them right there in that moment.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And amazingly hard work.
Yes.
I have to give it to you all. You're just as important as an educator and a minister in that moment. You're both. So please keep up the good work with what you're doing, and help these families heal. So some of our viewers might, think that it could be a terrible moment, but it sounds like from Katrina and the way that you're talking, Stacy, that it's a kind of a spiritual moment that can be looked upon as, something for a higher good.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It really is. Because there are times where you can see that shift with someone. And Katrina kind of alluded to that. It's like in the midst of all that trauma, here you are offering an opportunity that the family may not even have a clue that this is even an option. And letting them know that their loved one has the potential to save other people's lives. And you can see when someone makes the decision to say yes, it's like a shift where now there's something good, something positive that comes out of the traumatic moment. You can't change what happens to the potential donor, but you can change the life and legacy that they live and leave behind, because it really is a ripple effect that does transcend generations.
Amen. Before we get into some misconceptions, how easy or hard is it to become an organ donor?
It's very easy. There are many, many ways that people can actually register. Most people know through DMV, when you're getting your driver's license or non-driver's license, the question is asked there. So you can have the opportunity to register right then and there.
Okay, so back in the day, we signed the back of the card of our license. You don't do that anymore. Now you fill it out on the paperwork.
You fill it out on the paperwork.
Which is much better because, quite frankly, most of our licenses, the ink was smearing off of it, and they probably would not even be able to take that, as a yes to donation. So glad to hear that. Okay, what other ways?
Yes. And then there's also the ID NYC, what do you call that? The identification, where you can actually fill out and you can actually register right then and there. You can also register when you're registering to vote. So the one side of the application is the voter registration, and the other side is you can actually register to be an organ donor.
Did not know that.
Yeah, so you can register that way. Also, the Apple app. So anyone that has an Apple phone, if you go to the health section, you can register right then and there. You can also register online.
There's a lot of different ways.
Many, many different ways. And then if someone isn't registered, then the family can actually make the decision on behalf of their loved one.
Okay, when they're no longer able to respond for themselves.
Right, right. So when
Okay.
it's deemed that they have the potential to give the gift of life and be a donor, then that's when a family support advocate would ask the next of kin, the family member who's able to make that decision, whether or not if they would want their loved one to be an organ donor.
Yeah, that's good. It's such a blessing. I think of organ donation and for someone who might feel like they've never given back to humanity as one final good thing that we can do with these body parts that we don't need anymore. Right. So what are some more misconceptions? I know we talked about a lot last time, but not everybody watched that show and they might watch this show. So tell us about some misconceptions of organ donation, because there are a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Whoever wants to answer, you can
Yeah,
answer.
so most people say, oh my gosh, I don't want to register because if I do, they're not going to do anything to save my life because they're just going to want to take my organs. Such a huge misconception. That is not the case. Most people don't realize in order to be an organ donor, you have to be on a ventilator. So that is important. So in order to be an organ donor, you have to be on a ventilator, but also the medical field and Live on New York are two different entities. So doctors, EMS workers, nurses, their job is solely to do everything possible to save a person's life. So they're doing everything that they have to do to make sure that that person, is try to be saved, doing everything possible. Once all of that has been exhausted and it's deemed that that person is now going to be declared deceased, then is when Live on New York or any organ procurement organization will get involved to let the family know that their loved one has the potential to save a life. So again, we are completely separate from the hospital. We work with them, but the medical staff, they are not the ones there dealing with donation. It's Live on New York, and that's after the patient has been declared deceased.
And the one that we kept hearing this week was...
That's good to know. Separate.
And the one that we kept hearing this week was, I'm too old to donate my organs. We kept running across, we did a tabling a couple of times, and all we kept hearing is that I'm too old. They don't want my organs. I'm too old. But, not knowing the oldest organ donor in New York, I believe Stacey was 93.
Yes.
93 years old. And, of course, they'll do the assessments to see which organs, are okay to donate, but you're never too old to donate. Never.
Yeah, and the doctors will decide if it's good enough to donate. Right? So there's nothing to worry about in that respect.
Yes. So there's many tests that they do to check to see what can safely be transplanted.
So you do organ and tissue donations. What is tissue donation?
So tissue is basically like one person can save up to 8 lives as an organ donor. And with tissue donor, as a tissue donor, a person you can heal over 75 lives with tissue donation. So tissue consists of the corneas, which gives the gift of sight, skin, which helps firefighters, burn victims, also heart valves can be donated, veins, bone, and tendons. So that is what's consisted of tissue that can really help many, many people.
So that's amazing because the older woman didn't even know how many different ways that she could help. I mean, it could have been skin or something or anything. So that's amazing. I think people need to know that it's not just about the organs inside, but it's about everything that can be used, including the cornea, you said.
Correct. Yeah.
And that
so
will
many
actually
people are
help
scared.
people see. You said there are
So
people
many
that are
people
scared.
There's with the myths and the misconceptions that, you're told. I was hearing, my mama told me not to ever, donate my organs because they're gonna chop you up and da, da, da. It just comes down, from generations and what you're being taught, and so they're scared. They hear so many different things and not knowing, all that it entails to even become an organ donor. And they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to learn about it. They pass our table like, no, 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 no. I don't want to read anything about it. Instead of picking up and just say, well, let me see what it's about. And, and I think that's why it's so important to have these conversations and to have these shows that you can come on and just to start the conversation at home. I really feel that it starts there. I'm not here to change your mind. I just want the conversation to start, because that's one thing that I think is missing from making that decision.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, Stacey.
And also being able to make like an informed decision, right? Like learning as much as you can, so that way you're making a decision based on accurate information. So like Katrina was sharing, like people were saying like, oh no, don't do that because then they're going to cut you up, and not realizing that with organ donation, we maintain body integrity. So it's an incision and it's a surgery, just like the recipient has to undergo a surgery. So the donor is undergoing a surgery to give the gift of life, and they can still have a full viewing and an open casket if they don't, and even if they donate everything, all 8 organs, and being able to heal many people, over 75 people, with tissue donation. And people don't realize that. So they're thinking, oh no, I don't want to donate because then I can't have a full viewing, and you can.
Right, right. And I'm here to tell you, you can still go to heaven without some of your organs, without any of your organs, without any of your body. So don't let religion and thinking that you're not going to be whole in the afterlife stop you from doing something that is life-saving for someone else. So I want to hear the pitch. What advice would you give someone considering becoming an organ donor? Someone who's on the fence. What do you think would tip them over, so we know what to go out and talk about?
I basically would say just to start with Google it and see what it consists of to become an organ donor. Just have the conversation. I that's what I always go about. Just, in your home, just, hey honey, you ever thought about becoming an organ donor? Or hey, I just want to let you know that, I'm an organ donor. And just to start the conversation there in front of your kids, because you just never know where it would lead to. Sharing stories. It's your neighbor. It's your kid's classmate. It's it's the older woman down the block that needs that life-saving organ. So it just starts with just having a conversation at home for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
And
amazing.
often,
Absolutely.
and oftentimes, like, people see it, end of life conversations, as like they shy away from it. They don't want to have it. And the thing is, it's the one thing that's inevitable, right? Like it's the one thing that's going to happen, but then yet we don't want to discuss it. And I always say to people that, registering yourself to be an organ donor is really also a gift that you give to your family. Because when you lose someone and you're dealing with the trauma and the loss of no longer having that person there, when someone comes to you and say, well, your loved one was a registered donor, and they're notifying you, now we're there to support the family and what the process looks like, versus the family now having to, one, learn about it for the first time, and two, having to make such a crucial, important decision in such a short span of time. Right. So when the person makes that decision ahead of time, it's really a gift that you provide to the family, because you're going to start having to make so many decisions from there on out, ongoing as it is. That's one less decision that the family has to make right then and there.
I agree with that. I've been thinking about that. As your parents get older, they put things into place. You have to put things into place. And nobody wants to go and sit in the funeral home before it happens. But it just brings such relief, like you were saying, as one less thing to think about when you're in the throes of grief, you know? So
Right.
that's great. That's great. Can you describe the process of becoming an organ donor?
So as far as the process,
Or I'm sorry, not an organ, well, maybe organ donor to recipient. Like, how does that flow? Is it more than one department that's involved? How does that work?
so oftentimes, people think it just may happen at, the snap of a finger, and it's so much involved to get everything to happen. When, a person, let's say, that person is either registered, or once the family says yes, there's a transplant coordinator that is there to do the full assessment, right? So they're there to work with the hospital to do all of the testing, to see what organs can safely be transplanted to someone else. So they have to do blood tests. They have to see what blood type the person is. They have to do different tests to see what organs are viable and suitable for transplantation. So let's say if someone has congestive heart failure, they may not be able to be a heart transplant, but they might be able to be a kidney. They may be able to donate their kidney. So it all depends, but it's based on the different tests that they're doing. So while all of the different testing is being done, the family support advocate is there to support the family while they can continue to be at their loved one's bedside. So oftentimes they're there to do memory making with them. They're there to support the family and whatever family dynamics that they are going through. Some people have children involved, how to explain this now to their children, supporting them through that process, doing, handprints, memory making, heartbeats in the bottle. Like there's so many different things that they can work on doing to have and treasure those different memory making things and to take with them. And then while all of that is happening, our transplant coordinators are also working on the matching process. So while they're working on the matching process, they're looking to see who is a match with this person. So once they get all of the testing done and they see what organs can safely be transplanted, then they look to see who's a match with that donor. Now, sometimes the recipient could be in the next state over. They might reside in the same state. It depends on, what can be matched. And when they're looking at matching, they're looking at the size, blood type, how far they are from the donor, right? Because they have to be in semi-close proximity. And then also where they're placed on the national transplant list. So once they've identified the match, then they have to work with getting, because I'm sure people might have heard as a transplant recipient, when you receive that call, you have to be ready to get to their hospital right away, because they have to now get prepped for surgery, right? To receive that life-saving gift. Their transplant surgeon goes to the hospital where the donor is, and that's where they do the recovery of the organs, and then they take it to where the recipient is to do the transplant there. So it's so many different people involved, doctors, the hospital staff, Live on New York staff. There's many, many different departments involved in making that life-saving opportunity happen for the transplant recipient.
That needs to be a well-oiled machine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, your processes have to be intact to get all of that done.
Correct.
Wow, that's amazing.
Correct.
Are you all located in one building, or do you have does each department have its own place?
We're in one building. So all of the departments are in one building. And, we were working with the transplant centers, the hospitals, the different doctors, transportation, right? Because you have to figure out sometimes you may have to fly an organ out. You're dealing with New York City traffic, right? There's just all these things involved. So the transportation department is involved as well. So there's so much that happens to make that life-saving gift happen. But yes, we're localized in one building.
Wow, that's amazing. You guys are amazing. Kudos to your organization and the president and everyone who works there. That's amazing. So more misconceptions, because there are plenty. What are some of your largest misconceptions and myths?
No, go ahead. Because my largest one is the one we first touched on. That's what the one I get all the time. They won't save me if I'm in a car accident, because they're thinking that the paramedics is pulling out their license before they save their life to look to see if they're an organ donor. And that's the biggest one that, especially in the African American community, they think instantly that, they will not save me when the paramedic's job is to save a life. And at that moment, in that time, it's your life that they're working hard. They don't have time to open your wallet and see if you're an organ donor or call a family member and say, hey, are they donating their organs to decide whether or not they're going to save your life. It goes all the way through till you get to the hospital, from the doctors. They're all working on saving your life before it even comes down to even discussing organ donation, which does not happen until you're declared, until the tests are done and you're not, there's no activity and things of that nature. But the biggest one is that one that I always hear, that I'm always fighting, that they're not looking at your license to see if you're an organ donor to save your life. They're doing everything possible.
Yes. Right. We need to know that. We need to know that. I've heard that one over and over again too.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And also religion comes up a lot too. Like, oh, it's against my religion. I can't do that. And oftentimes people don't realize that all major religions do agree with organ donation. A lot of them see it as an opportunity to, heal others and give life, and, as far as being like an altruistic gift of doing all for mankind. Even the Pope had mentioned that it was something positive in helping others. And, in the Quran, it's noted that, if you save one person, it's as if you saved all of mankind. So, it's really agreed upon with many, many religions. And oftentimes people don't realize that, there may be something of concern. And this is why it's so important to have a conversation where they feel like, oh, no, it's against my religion, but it may be deeper than that. So I know with some faiths, they do believe, okay, their loved one has to be buried within 24 hours.
Right.
Right. So they feel like, oh, no, well, I can't do organ donation because they have to be buried in 24 hours. And the thing is, we do work with families' time frames. So if their loved one needs to be buried within 24 hours, we will do everything that can be done within that time frame and still have their loved one be buried within 24 hours. So the person can still give the gift of life and honor their time frame as far as when they need to be buried. Also, in some religions, they believe that their loved ones have to be wrapped a certain way. And a person can still be an organ donor and have that happen as well. So it's really important, right, to have those conversations to discuss specifically what are those concerns, because then you can have a deeper conversation to see, can that still be maintained and honored, and they can still give the gift of life. And oftentimes, yes, it can.
Beautiful, beautiful. How about the misconception about superstars? I hear that often as well, that if there's celebrities that come in after you and it's an emergency situation, that they'll prioritize.
Yeah, no.
It's out there. I've heard it.
It is out there. It is out there. People say it all the time, and it's so not the case. It's based solely on blood type, also where the person is placed on the transplant waiting list. So like, you have some people, if they don't receive that life-saving gift within 24 hours, they are not going to survive. Wow. So if someone is at that critical point, then they would be higher on the list. Also body mass, like you have to consider, if you have someone, let's say if they're a 200-pound male, cannot donate his heart to a 6-month-old baby. Because the size of the organ just won't fit. Size counts as well, and also geographic proximity, right? Because let's say if the donor is here from New York and they're donating their heart, the recipient can't be in California because the heart can only survive outside of the body for about 4 hours. And you got to factor in ground transportation, flight, all of that time has to be factored in. So proximity plays a part as well. Anything outside of that, such as race, gender, financial status, celebrity status, none of those things are considered. It's illegal to do any of that, and that does not happen. So it's only those first four things that I mentioned that are considered as far as matching.
That's great. You said the word matching, and what came to me was women need to donate to other women. Men only can donate to men.
Not the case. Yeah.
Case.
So
Okay.
it can be a woman can donate to a man can donate to a woman. Also, like Katrina mentioned, her son as a baby was able to donate to two other babies, right? Because size is also important. But if you have, let's say, a very small framed woman, she may only be able to receive from a child, depending on her size and her frame, or a male size and frame if he's also very small as well. So, size is really the factor. Whether or not if it's male or female doesn't matter.
It's so amazing. All of these, intricacies that need to happen. Yet when people are thinking about organ donation, we're only thinking about, one thing, losing something, right? But you guys have a whole system. There are other organ donation places around the United States as well.
Yeah.
Is Live on New York is based in New York? Do you have any satellite places out there in different parts of the U.S.?
So Live on New York is the organ procurement organization for the New York metropolitan area. So we cover all 5 boroughs, all of Long Island. We go as high up as Dutchess County, and we cover one small area in Pennsylvania, which is Pike. So that's our donation service area. And then you have other organ procurement organizations in different boroughs. But like in New York, there are 3 OPOs, we say for short, organ procurement organizations. So Live on New York only covers the donation service area that I talked about. But then you have like upstate New York, like Albany, Binghamton. So that's a different OPO. So there are different OPOs throughout the US.
Great. Okay, so everybody's listening. There are different OPOs. So if you're in Arizona, right, there's got to be a place out there. If you're in Connecticut, there's a place out there. What would you tell someone who is right on the fence of saying, okay, I'll be a donor? Just right there, but just, just are afraid. What could you say to them?
Well, if it's I think I'll go into donor mom because if I step out of the volunteer coordinator role for a second and just go into being donor mom, I can just share my story at that moment and share what my experience have been. And although 24 years ago, I would have never imagined where I'm at now, but it does something more than just my son passed away, period. It gave me a legacy to tell for him. My son passed away, but he saved 2 babies' lives, because every time I start to say, my son passed away, aw, and it's like before they even go into that, I'm like, but he saved 2 babies' lives. And they're like, oh, and it automatically just turned the whole where the conversation was going to go to, well, how did he do that? And that's amazing. And instead of, oh my God, I'm so sorry for that. That was one of my things. That was one of the things of why I stopped even talking about Jalil too, because I didn't want to always hear the, oh, I'm sorry, and it's that no one means any harm about it or anything. That's just them expressing themselves to you. But it was just something I just didn't want to hear at that moment. So now it gave me a whole story to tell. a legacy to share, and hoping that that will show somebody that there is healing after the dust have settled. Everybody went home. You know, you're in the house by yourself. You're actually, you know, it gave me a new relationship with my son. I couldn't have the normal relationship with him, you know, seeing him grow up, go to prom, go to college. I wasn't granted that one, but now I'm able to share his legacy and share his story and tell about how a 22-year-old now has her own baby. And that just brings me a different type of joy, as if he was coming home and saying, Mom, I got an A in all my classes. You know, it gives me that type of joy now that I didn't see would happen. So hopefully someone would take my story as, okay, there's hope.
Yeah.
You know, all we can do is give people hope. And I'm not here to tell you to do it. You have to do it. That's exact, you know, that's your decision to make.
Yeah.
But hopefully, if you hear my story and you hear my son's legacy and see what it did and what it's doing for me now, because I'm still in a healing process that I didn't even know I needed healing from. You know, you think years pass by, I'm over it. You know, I'm good. There's no more tears in me. And no, I've cried more in these past 4 years, and I think, and yeah, the entire time, to be honest.
Amen.
But that's just healing. That's healing. That's letting everything that I've suppressed and didn't want to think about out, and then bringing that joy in. So all I can do is just share, and hopefully it will kind of tip them to that side, but at least open their minds up a little bit more.
I mean, this organization is so very hopeful. Like people might on the outside might not think that, but you all are bringing hope and love and connections between donors and donor recipients. How long do you stay in this I'll call it a family unit with helping the donors families or helping the donor recipients? How long does that relationship last with everyone?
Well, with donor families, it's for a lifetime. It's,
Yeah.
you know, there we have an aftercare department that provides ongoing supportive services, mental health counseling, and individual and group. And I'll let Katrina even also share on her how she was able to support a lot of our donor families with group counseling. But it's ongoing, and it's whenever a donor family feels that they need support. You know, sometimes it's right away. Sometimes it can pop up, let's say 5 years later, where it's like there's a trigger that happens in one of our donor families' life, and they're like, well, you know what, I need someone right now. And they can reach out to our aftercare department and they will support them. So it's really for a lifetime. But Katrina was able to do a lot of amazing work with our donor families. So I'll let her share and what she was able to do with them.
Yeah, the aftercare department, amazing team department. What they do with the donor families is it means a lot to donor families like me, the support groups that they have. So they open the opportunity for me to have a support group for our donor families. And I was able to have 4 sessions of just a support group once every 3 months. I was able to get a group of us. We have our own community. It's our own family. And you know, we hope no one ever comes into this family, but we know a lot of people will join this family. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. I think they said bittersweet moment. And when you come into the family, you're kind of locked in for life. So to be able to support and just us sharing our stories and sharing our feelings and where we're at, it meant so much for me. And I believe it meant a lot for the donor families too. So I was able to give back at that time, just not just sharing my story, but just being a support system as a donor mom for other families who's going through the same thing.
Wow, thank you. We only have about a minute and a half. Do you have any resources to tell us where to find you all. And we do have some slides that are coming up right after we say goodbye tonight. But any resources that you have where people can go to and maybe get more information?
Definitely. They can go to our website, www.liveonnewyork.org, liveonny.org. You can definitely reach us at our office, which is 646-291-4455 to get additional information. We have many, many resources, brochures, fact brochures in many, many different languages that people can read up on and get information. So definitely go to our website, call us. If you want us to send information to you, we can do that for sure.
Awesome. And they'll even come to do tabling events at your event. So contact them. Ladies, Stacy Connell, Live on New York, Katrina Erskine, Live on New York. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You have been a blessing to us, and just excited to get the word out about organ donation. Good night, everyone, and have a beautiful, beautiful week before you see LaShawn next week. Take care.
All right. Thank you.